Welcome, welcome. This is the Enlightenment Podcast, part of the Authors on Air Global Radio Network. And I'm your host, Laurie Schoenfeld. Thank you for all of those who are listening in. We're so excited to have you joining us. Our guest today is the radiant Nola Nash, author of the Crescent City Series and podcaster of Dead Folk Tales. We're going to be talking all about her first book today, Crescent City Moon. Welcome, Nola. Hello.
Hi. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so stoked to talk to you about your book, and I've been really anticipating a face-to-face conversation.
Yes.
So, how is your December, and what is it looking like?
It's super busy. It's getting busier by the minute. I'm an instructional coach for our online high school here in our school district, and the end of a semester can be a pretty busy time for everybody as we're trying to wrap things up and exam week coming up. So I support teachers, which means they need a lot right now, and that's great. That's why I'm here. So it's pretty busy, but I'm looking forward to my college kids coming home and having some holiday time with them. So that'll be good too.
Bless you for helping teachers. I only have a little snippet of it from, doing remote learning with my children and kind of getting a small portion of what that looks like every single day. So bless you and the teachers who are working overtime right now to support.
They really are. They really are. They've got a lot put on them, So it's an interesting time in education.
What's a tradition that you usually do with your family during December?
Ooh, let's see, a December tradition. We usually do Christmas Eve at my brother and sister-in-law's. And we will go over there and let the kids open presents from them and let my nephews open the presents from us. And then that way their family gets Christmas morning they have younger kids. So they get Christmas morning for their kiddos to kind of do their thing. And nobody has to rush to do anything or anything like that. But we play a lot of games. We always have our games and our food. We're from South Louisiana, so we got to have our food. There's food in everything we do. My sister-in-law is an amazing cook. So there's always fun food and lots of games. And my little nephews, who are 8 and 12, are vicious game players. So we love to play games with them.
The competition is real in your family.
Very. And I would say, most people would say, well, do you cut them some slack? No, they don't cut us any slack. They're better than us. So vicious.
My boy and I were playing air hockey at an arcade, and he's like, Mom, you just let me win. And I'm like, son, no, you got skills. You're going to figure it out. Let's play. Let's have a good time. I'm not going to let you win.
That's right. No, my parents, my grandparents, nobody ever let us win at games. We had to scratch and claw our way to the winner's seat.
So Crescent City Moon, can you share with our listeners what this beautiful book is all about?
It is set in 1830 New Orleans in the French Quarter. And our heroine of the story, Zéolie, her father is brutally murdered in her own home. No sign of who could have done this. The police can't find anybody. It starts her off on a path of discovering who she is as she's trying to solve her father's murder and prevent other loved ones from being caught in the path of this just horrible, murderous, just soulless person who's after them. And she's learning a lot about the magic that she has inherited from her mother's side of the family, and how to use that without succumbing to consequences that come with that, which, bordering on madness, trying to keep herself sane while she's fighting for everybody that she loves. And she's trying to solve this mystery and constantly battling against a force she cannot see, because the murderer can kill on a whim and not even be in the same room as the person she kills, then there is very real fear in that. And she has help from some unlikely people. There is one of the young police officers who was there on the scene, Louis, and Louis Saucier kind of becomes a bit of a love interest for her as well. Their relationship is an interesting one to watch develop there. It's very sweet. And then she has, of course, she has no mother. Her mother died, she thought, very young. She's learning a lot of family secrets as she goes. But the woman who has sort of stepped in place as her mother, as a dear friend of the family, and her two daughters are helping, as well as a voodoo priestess and the Ursuline nuns. And being from South Louisiana, the lines between the church and voodoo and magic often blur. Oftentimes, they are one and the same, especially with the voodoo practice that had to hide itself under the guise of the Catholic faith for so long. So it's interesting to see all of those pieces play together in that story.
Mm-hmm. I loved this story so much because it did weave and blend so many questions with the mystery, the paranormal. We have some religion, magic aspect that comes in, but then the self-discovery as well, right from the very first page. So
Yes.
kudos, Nola. Where did you write? Where was your creative station when you were
A lot of this was, I lived in a different place. I lived in a different house, and it had a back deck. And I had a garden on that back deck, and I would sit out there in the middle of all of my plants that were kind of coming in at me by the end of the summer as I was writing. They were just getting bigger and bigger. And I would sit there and write, and just being outside. I write better when I'm not in my house. I have a balcony in my apartment now that I will sit out and write on, or coffee shops that I will go to. I have a hard time writing inside my house. Even though I have a lovely office space, I do work from home as an online teacher, coach, but I get distracted by what's inside the house, and, laundry that needs to be done, things that need to be cleaned, unload the dishwasher, and all of those other chores kind of take away from my creative focus. So I tend to find places either outside to write, or a funky little coffee shop where the white noise of the Frappuccino blenders and the espresso machine kind of drown out other things. And then I'm there with a purpose. I have to go with a purpose. It's like, I'm here to write. And so whatever time I am there is dedicated to that. So for this first book, it was that back deck mostly that I was sitting on and writing, and I could spend hours out there, lose myself, and have, I'm watching, the shadows would change as the time goes by, and like, wow, I've been out here a while now. I should probably go do some stuff. I get lost in my writing, and I have a hard time finding my way back out sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I love how you mentioned that you remove yourself outside of the home, because I went through that stage too, of every time I'd be in my house, I would find myself going and doing other things and not really having that purpose-driven aspect of where I needed to be. So removing definitely helps. If
it
you're
does.
at
It really does.
Your coffee shop, you have one that you go to often. What are some of your favorite sensory details that you enjoy?
Ooh, that particular coffee shop, I'll give a little shout out to Onyx and Alabaster in downtown Franklin, Tennessee, which is where I'm living now. I grew up in South Louisiana, but I live in Middle Tennessee now. Onyx and Alabaster, I love. There's also a bakery that I will go and write at when Onyx and Alabaster is closed, and that's Triple Crown Bakery, and I get tea there. There's just something about the vibe in Onyx and Alabaster. It's long and it's narrow. It's painted. It's a very old building, first of all, and the inside, it's exposed brick, but it's painted black, and everything is mostly black with the white accents and these just beautiful paintings and this kind of funky music, and it's got a bit of a beat, but I don't always, I'm not really listening to the words. And again, it's the noise of the coffee shop and just kind of all of the people coming and going. It's got an energy to it, but at the same time, I think the black kind of helps the distraction piece. And it helps kind of focus me in. The walls are black, the chairs are black, the table is black, like everything is, the cups are black, like everything's black. And it sounds very dismal and gothic, but it's really not. It's actually quite elegant in there. And it's just a great space to kind of focus in, because there's not so much busyness in there. And I walk in and the people know my name and they know exactly what I want to drink. I just walk up there, they enter it in the computer, and I hand them my card. Like, it's just simple.
Welcome back, Nola.
Yeah. It's kind of like, hey, same thing. The huge. Actually, there's one of the girls says the huge. The huge.
The huge.
It's always the huge. Yeah, I'm a creature of habit. The same place, the same drink. It kind of symbolizes that particular book that I'm working on too. It's like kind of each place has its own feel, and it's when I get into the groove with the writing, it feels right to be in that place. It's like I can pick up very easily back up where I left off, and it's just kind of settle in without having to kind of feel like, okay, where's the plug? Where's, my computer's going to die? What, all these different people. It's very easy to just fall into place.
Mm-hmm. When you were writing Crescent City Moon with Zéolie, what was the first initial idea that came to you that set you in motion to write the story?
I wanted to write a book that blended everything that I loved about New Orleans in one. Basically, it was sort of a love letter to the city and its history. And I wanted people to understand the magic and the mystery and the history of the place for what it is, not what Hollywood has made it, because it's very different, especially the voodoo piece. And I wanted people to see voodoo as the protective force that it was always intended to be. It's been demonized quite a bit and villainized. But, one of the good guys in the book is the voodoo priestess. And that's what she would have been. She would not have been, casting black magic spells and things like that. That's not the place of the voodoo priestess. They are a protector and a healer. And so I wanted to showcase that part of it. I wanted to showcase the blending of the Catholic Church with the voodoo faith. People don't know this, but Father Antoine, who is mentioned very early on in Crescent City Moon, he was a real person, and that's why it's dated when it is. I tend to drop in these historical figures. It's just kind of those little cookies for me and Easter eggs for me. Nobody else knows, but I know that he was a real person. But he was a very well-loved priest at St. Louis Cathedral, and he was also very good friends with Marie Laveau, the voodoo queen of New Orleans. And they served the people together, whether it was through the Catholic Church and his blessings there, whether it was through what Marie Laveau did with her voodoo practice, but she was a devout Catholic. She was at church every Sunday, every holy day. And they served the sick during yellow fever outbreaks together. So I wanted people to understand that relationship, that they were not always working at cross purposes. Sometimes they were working in tandem. And it makes a very interesting story when you can line those two things up. And having the French Quarter elite, their lives were privileged, but at the same time, they were difficult. It was not an easy place to live. And so there were a lot of things that could have gone horribly wrong for them. And in this case, we have unsolved murder that is very difficult to solve because of the lack of clues. And blending all of that history, all of the culture, the magic, that was truly why I wanted to write it. And it was, what can I do? What kind of story can I tell that blends all of this together? And that's kind of where the seed came from. And having our particular villain, she actually was inspired a little bit by the legend of the Bell Witch of Adams, Tennessee, because Kate, the Bell Witch, could be heard but not seen, felt but not actually experienced. So that piece of being watched all the time, being able to be affected by someone you could not see, someone you couldn't brace for, someone you couldn't see coming. It's that element of fear of the unknown, and you can't brace for what you can't see coming. And so it's frightening and it's dangerous. And so there was a lot of that, kind of that, her sick sense of humor a little bit kind of came from that, kind of thoroughly enjoying the madness that she was causing. All of those things, that character, Selene, was largely inspired, but then kind of taken in her own New Orleans way by the Bell Witch of Tennessee. So it was like, okay, well, if I can combine these two things and come up with a story that really truly is the essence of New Orleans at that time, then I've done my job.
When you were doing the research part, is that a blend of being there, reading books, having your own personal history? What did that look like?
A lot of it was reading books, because my goal, anytime I write anything that has history in it, the history has to be accurate before the fiction can be woven in. Mm-hmm. I don't want people hung up on historical inaccuracies that they can't enjoy the story. But the other part of it, with the magic and the voodoo, it became actually learning how to do those things. I've had some incredible teachers that have really walked me through everything from the candle magic to the tarot reading. Basically, if it's in there, I've learned how to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's such a sensory experience that really and truly, if I'm going to write about it and write well about it, then it has to be all encompassing. I have to be able to talk about the way things feel, the way things smell, all of those things, because most of the people reading this book are not going to have had that experience. And so if I can't bring all of their senses into that through my words, then it's not going to have the impact that it needs. So for me to do that, I needed to learn how to do those things so that I understood and I could really describe my own sensations in doing those things.
Mm-hmm. It definitely, I felt that when I was reading the book, of all the sensory details really placed me as if I was right there experiencing it. Right alongside. So it was beautiful. Yes. You have a character in your book, Angeli, and she talks about nature always has something to teach us. I love trees and I love nature, so I really just soaked those parts in. Mm-hmm. What is something that nature has personally taught you?
I think one thing nature has taught me is that there is always an opportunity for rebirth. Mm. It's that, especially this time of year and kind of watching things die off, the leaves are falling. Even in the falling of the leaves, even as things are dying, there's beauty, because, we appreciate the color of the leaves and that change. We look forward to that. And it's truly the death of those leaves. It's that hibernation of that tree. It's kind of going into itself. And that's okay. That's a beautiful thing. And when you take that time to go into yourself and really just quiet your soul for a while, then you can blossom again. But we have to be able to take that time for ourselves and to do those things. And nature teaches us that lesson. It tries to tell us that it's okay. It is okay to stop, to go within, to pause when you need to pause, rest when you need to rest, so that when you blossom again, it's even more beautiful. And that's a lesson I think we can all learn, especially as our lives get more hectic, is taking that time that we need to pause and to just stop and allow life to be beautiful rather than rushed.
Mm-hmm. I just got chills. It reminded me of like the seasons. So there's purpose for every season. And years ago, there was an author who had mentioned to me that every season has a purpose. And I did not like that when I was trying to hurry and rush my author stage in my writing.
Yep.
But now sitting in it now, I understand like there is something you can learn from every season of every stage of your life if you allow it to unfold.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And sometimes it comes in a strange way. I mean, I've had to put other books on a back burner for a while because it wasn't the right time for them. I was not in the right headspace for them. it was something I wrote because I needed to write it. Sequels tend to be that way, or third books tend to be that way. I was working on both of those things. I've got so many books in progress right now, and I'm a moody writer. I have to be in the place for that book. So I don't want it to feel forced. If it feels forced to me, it's going to feel forced to whoever is reading it. So I've had to learn that it's okay to step away from that until it's the right time for that. Until my heart says this is the story I want to tell right now. And when it's time for that story, it'll be a better story for that.
Mm-hmm. You, Miss Nola, are a sister podcaster with Authors on Air Global Radio Network, and your podcast is Dead Folks Tells. Can you tell us what listeners can expect from your podcast?
Absolutely. Dead Folks Tales is a New Orleans-centric podcast, but we're all about Southern Gothic stories. So we don't always stay in New Orleans. It's got the vibe, the feel, the kind of laid-back attitude, I guess, of New Orleans. And because my soul is always there, whether I am physically there or not, I love the stories of New Orleans and the Deep South. And there's some really fascinating things that not a lot of people know about. So it's my job to kind of bring some of those things to light. But we also talk music, we talk culture, we're going to talk food on a future episode. I love to talk all of those things that have a history, that has roots that run very, very deep, especially in the Deep South. And I love the tales that come with it. So sometimes my guests are a bit more modern in what they do, but everything that we talk about has very deep historical roots in Southern Gothic or New Orleans kind of history and tales. So it's a lot of fun. I really don't know what I know who I have and what we're going to, what their specialty is, but I never know what we're going to really talk about. It kind of is wherever the conversation leads us. I always say it's like sitting down with a friend, having a drink and just chatting about stuff, and whatever comes up is what we're going to talk about. And we've had some fun conversations that way. It's very unscripted and it's a lot of fun.
You're an amazing interviewer. I've watched quite a few that you've done, and you're just a lot of fun with your conversations. What's something as an interviewer that you've also learned from your guests, just sitting and listening to their amazing stories and tells?
I think something that I have really learned from my guests is that you really just knowing what someone is known for is such a small part of who they are. And when I choose my guests, it's because they're known for something, whether it's an author or a musician. And you never know how complex that person is until you sit down and start talking to them. And even how much you can connect to someone that maybe you didn't feel like you had much in common with other than that one little nugget. And I've found some amazing connections with people that way. I had a Zydeco musician on, and we found out that our oldest children have spent years in the same city doing music and have actually worked on a show together. I mean, never thought that. It was kind of like, what? And it's a connection that when you just sit down and talk to people and let people just be people, it's amazing what you learn. And that's why I love the unscripted kind of attitude of the show. It's just, you know what? We're just going to talk because I like to get to know people. And I've always done that when I've, interviewed authors and things like that. I want people to get to know them for the people that they are, not just what they've done. Who are they? And get to know them as well as I do in that amount of time, so that they're looking forward to the next thing that they do because they like the person and they feel like they know the person. I think so much of what we do these days, we're grasping for connection, especially since we lost so much of that in recent time. But being able to find those connections, even in this format, where we're so far away and yet we're side by side. And I think it's allowing those connections to happen in a new way is what's so fascinating. And having guests who are willing to open up and share that with me is just been a wonderful experience.
People are so interesting and fascinating. It's amazing to find those pieces for sure. Are you ready for the inner child question segment, Nola?
Yes.
Okay. Bum, bum, bum. Question 1.
Okay.
If you could pick only one scent for a candle, what would you pick and why?
Fresh cut grass.
Ooh.
Fresh cut grass. Fresh cut grass always reminds me of my dad. He's always out there mowing the lawn. It reminds me of spring, kind of that first time that you really smell somebody cutting grass after a long winter. There's just something refreshing about that. It's like there's something new and exciting is happening. And I'm a warm weather person. I don't like the cold. So fresh cut grass reminds me of those kind of warm days of walking barefoot outside and just being a kid and running through the fresh cut grass was always the best thing.
I can smell it just with you talking about it.
Yeah,
for sure. Spring is here right now with Nola and I.
Spring all the time in a candle.
Yep. Candle love, no matter what season it is, candles are a going.
They are.
What do you find magical personally for you?
Magical. Babies. I find babies magical. I think that their sense of wonder is just a magical thing. They're experiencing the world and things for the very first time, things that we have become jaded to. And I think babies have the power of taking some of that jadedness away. When we experience life anew through them, that's magic. When you're watching that baby for the very first time discover a ladybug or something that has once been special to us, but in our adult lives we've kind of begun to overlook, then that's magic. It brings you back to that sense of wonder and discovery. So I think babies are magical.
I absolutely agree. They really are.
They are.
Yes. What is the oddest food combo that you've liked and tried or you've just tried?
Oddest food combo may have to be what I craved when I was pregnant with my third child. When I was pregnant with Luna, I wanted tortilla chips and Neapolitan ice cream. I would literally get the tub of Neapolitan ice cream out of the freezer and the bag of tortilla chips and scoop the ice cream out with the tortilla chip like it was my spoon. And I would sit there and eat that. And that was like, it was super weird, but it was the sweet and the salty, the creamy and the crunchy. It's like it had all the sensations I needed. Maybe it was calcium. I don't know. But it was, I try to say it's the calcium. I needed the calcium. But honestly, it was just weird. And it's like, the first time I did it, I didn't even think about it. I didn't even know I was pregnant when I did it. The first time I'm just like, this is really good. Like, this is exactly what I needed. And that was actually how my husband, at the time, he was like, there's something we need to find out some things about you because I'm pretty sure this isn't normal.
How was your day? No, really. How was your day?
Just gonna eat my ice cream.
And the scoop. I can see it because you got the sweet and the salty, the crisp, the creamy, smooth, and you got a spoon.
Yeah, and no dishes involved.
No cleaning. None.
This was the best snack ever.
I think we're onto something, Nola, that you just really helped the majority of us come up with a snack with no cleanup and easy access.
Absolutely. And then, if you only want one of the 3 flavors, you just eat that part of the carton.
My strawberry, my chocolate, my swirl.
Yeah.
I'm really going to go. I'm going to have my kids try this with me today because I'm actually, that sounds really good to me.
I know, every now and then I'll still do it. I mean, it's really funny because it came about because I was pregnant, but I'm like, screw this whole pickles and ice cream thing. Tortilla chips are way better. And then, you don't smell like pickles. It's just, you scoop it out. It's great.
All right. Yep. We'll take a picture of that and try that out today. We'll call it the Nola dish.
There you go.
The new thing.
Yep.
You have a new book coming out in March 2020 called The Traveler. What can readers expect to get from this book?
Oh, Traveler is a fun one. It is set in modern day. Our main character, Shelby Starling, I always say she's if Anthony Bourdain was a 20-something chick, that's Shelby Starling. Because she's jaded, she's snarky, she's often solving life problems with a bottle of Chianti rather than the way she should be. And her job is to explore the world and write about it. She's writing promotional materials for a travel company. And she doesn't really at first appreciate anywhere she is until she's been there a while and had some experiences. So it's very Anthony Bourdain, and I love Anthony Bourdain. So it's kind of my, again, I use books as love letters to people and things. It's the city of New Orleans in the first series. This is kind of in fact, it's an Anthony Bourdain quote. That's the dedication in the book about travel. And she's born in the wrong time. And she has to find her way back to her destiny. But in order to do that, she has to learn some lessons from her past lives. So there's a lot of history in this book as well, because as she goes about her travels, she's pulled back into past lives, memories of past lives, because she has lessons to learn about who she's meant to be. And she has to come to grips with that and then find her way back to who and when she was supposed to be.
All right. Well, that is right up my alley, and I'm super excited to dive into that when that comes out in March of next year.
Yep.
Where can they find you, Nola, if they have any questions about your books or any comments after our show today?
Absolutely. You can find me on nolanash.com, which is my website. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Instagram and Twitter, it's at Nola Nash Writes. On Facebook, I also have a Facebook group, which is my street team called Nola's Second Line, and we have a lot of fun over there. And also over at Dead Folks Tales on Facebook as well. So that's the podcast. If you want to go check it out, all the past episodes are there. Oh, you're muted, Lori. We spend a lot of time telling teachers that all day.
Magic. I know. I had this really cool face just frozen for a second. Thanks, Nola. Before we end today, what advice can you give our listeners on living a creative life?
Living a creative life, I think, has to do with following your heart more than anything else. Creativity comes in so many different ways for so many different people that I think if we limit that definition to, whether it's art, music, dance, writing, whatever, if we limit creativity, then I think we're going completely against what creativity is. And so if you follow your heart and you know what it is that makes you feel like you are creating, whatever that is, whether it's, cooking dinner, turn that into something that is joyful for you. Creative should be therapeutic. It should be fun. It should be relaxing. If it's not, it's become stale to you. Move on to something else. And that's the other thing about living a creative life is it never has to look the same. Every day can be something different. Take a risk. Be ready to fail, and next time fail better. And that's all creative. Just define it yourself. Don't let anybody else define your creativity for you.
Thank you for being here with us today, Nola. It has been so much fun to be chatting with you. Lots of nuggets today. And we'll put all of your links in the comments below for easy access. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And for those who are watching, remember as you go about the rest of your week to look for the things that are working all around you and the pieces that are magical, as there is magic and creativity all around you. Have a great rest of the day, and we will see you this time, 3 o'clock p.m. Mountain Standard Time next Monday, right here on the Enlightenment Podcast. Have a good week, everyone. Thank you, Nola.
Thank you.